Hey, what is up guys? My name is Guillaume, this is Thomann's Guitars and Basses, and welcome to another video on our open tuning sort of for beginner series. And today I'm going to teach you how to slide in open tuning. Alright guys, I hope you're doing great today. In this particular video, I'm going to expand on videos that I've done over the past few weeks, and you guys seem to really enjoy, where I talked about open tuning and sort of figuring out the different chords, the different positions on the neck, different tryouts as well. All those videos will be linked either up there or in the description box down below. So if you haven't seen them, go check them out because they really lay out the basics of what I'm going to do today. In one of those videos, I talked about open tuning as a means to sort of navigate the fretboard a little bit more easily as far as slide playing goes, because that was one of the main questions you guys had whenever I was playing slide on the channel. Say, hey, what tuning is that? Most often it was some sort of an open tuning. And for those open tunings, as I explained in the first video, I always use the same configuration, whether it's open E, open D, or open C. Those are major open tunings. So I'm based off of a 1-5-1-3-5-1 intervals. And in today's example, I'm going to be in open E again to try and make it as simple as possible. So that's going to be E, B, E, G sharp, B, E. That's my tuning for the day. And as I explained as well, open tunings allow you to basically have any major chord on the fretboard by just barring the whole chord. And that's the whole concept of it. You're basically tuned as an E major chord already. So if you want F sharp major, you got it. If you want A major, you got it. If you want G major, you got it. And that's just that. And that's why a lot of slide players have adopted that tuning, is because that allows them to just basically do the bar chord with the slide, because your finger, whichever finger you have the slide on, is basically bound to that straight up position, and that's your major chord. So today I'm going to go over 5 sort of techniques, or at least 5 levels of slide playing in open tuning that you're going to be able to apply to your own playing. And level number 1 sort of doesn't really have anything to do with open tuning, because that's really the basics of slide, and it's going to be sliding on a single string. For that, I really recommend using your finger. Regardless, finger picking for slide is always a little bit more controllable. No particular note on the guitar setup. This one is set up completely normally. Those are 10 to 46 standard action type of thing. So don't worry too much about that. You're going to have noise in the beginning, but it's fine. It's normal, and it'll go away with experience, really. So level 1 is going to be playing on the 1 string, and here's an example of that. So as far as that step goes, there's not much I can explain other than try different slides in order to find the thing that allows you to have just the right amount of pressure on the string to play comfortably without having too much fret noise. Again, if you're beginning, it's completely normal. You're going to have some. It'll go away as soon as you practice a little bit more and you sort of gauge the pressure that you need to play on that string. But stick to a melody that you know as something simple, something that doesn't require gigantic steps from the lower register to the higher one. So something like Amazing Grace is always a good place to start, and it's such a beautiful melody. Anyways, so that was level number 1. Level number 2 is obviously going to be playing 2 strings at the same time or more. I'm going to start with 2. There might be a couple of examples in that progression that require more than 2 strings, but basically, the same principle will apply if you play on 2 and if you play on 3, and it's going to be lining the slide correctly across several strings in order to have them ring at the right pitch, obviously. Here's an example. And that's probably a little bit closer to what you have in mind when you start playing the slide as a guitar player. Something very bluegrass, very, yeah, bluesy, swampy type of thing. I really love those, and more often than not, they will imply that you'll have to play slide across several strings. Again, you have the same idea of the amount of pressure that you'll need to play on the one string. That'll apply regardless of what you play with slide. This is really the most important thing. But in terms of playing several strings at the same time, you might have to adjust to two things. First off, the fret. So obviously when you play slide, you're lining up above the fret, and you really want to work on your accuracy when doing that on several strings, because sort of the natural position, if you have your thumb over the fretboard, if you're that kind of guitar player, the natural position for your pinky is going to be more like this than like this. So there's going to be a lot of adjusting in your wrist, first off, to manage to line it up correctly above the fret. And second, it's going to be slightly depending on the radius of your guitar. Ideally, if you have anything above 9.5, it's absolutely fine. It's really a non-issue. If you play on a compound radius or something that's a little bit more vintage-like, you will have to adapt depending on which string you're playing on, because your radius is more going to go like this rather than something flat. So if you play on the higher register, you're going to have to tilt your slide slightly. But that's really a non-issue. Most guitars nowadays are made with a 9.5 radius. It's really rare to have anything more vintage-like, and if so, that's not really a problem either. And that leads us to level number 3, which is something that I kind of grazed upon in the first open tuning video that I made, and that was how to reach your minor chords. Because if you remember that, I said that minor positions in open tuning, you're going to have to take down the third to a minor third, and that means doing something like this. And now when you're playing with the slide, you're going to have to play under the slide. That is the name of that technique. Let's have an example, and then I'll explain a little bit what's going on with that. So on top of showing different techniques, I'm also going to try and combine all the levels that we're going through right now. So there was a little bit of single string, a little bit of draw, like several strings at the same time, and now the playing under the slide sort of technique. Again, there is not a lot to that, honestly, because physics is really going to be your friend in that case. Once you sort of gauge the pressure that you need with the slide, you're going to realize that you basically barely touching the string at all. So that means that once you fret underneath the slide, and for that, this is for that particular technique that I'd rather have the slide on my pinky. A lot of players manage to do that with the slide on their ring finger. It's not a big issue, but I have more like reach in that position if I have it there. But you'll soon realize that the second you start fretting a note underneath the slide, the string physically goes way down in comparison to the other strings on your instrument. So that means it's not affected by the slide anymore. So really, once you have your slide in position like this, my slide is not moving. It's in position, but the second I fret the string underneath, it's not in contact with it anymore. And that's basically all there is to it. In that particular case, I went from a minor chord to a sus2 chord. That's going to take a little bit more coordination, but just practicing on something like so just going from your major position to your minor position like that, sort of, you know, in a row, but just to practice, again, the amount of pressure and your accuracy with it is going to do a whole lot. And in the end, it's really not that complicated of a technique. And that leads us to our technique number 4 for today, which is one that I like to call the Ariel Posen technique, which is a little bit of a run that he does in a lot of his solos. And that I think it's 75% of why I started slide was that. But it kind of combines playing underneath the slide as well as changing strings while you do it. I'll demonstrate what I mean by that, and then I'll explain kind of sort of how it works. So it's that kind of technique that kind of looks impressive at first, mostly when it's played fast or kind of fast, like I just did. But it requires quite a bit of control because it implies sort of sliding on a single string before going on sliding 2 strings and then playing under the slide on that second string you play on before going back to the first one. So I'll just play it slow and try and focus on my left hand. So what's cool with that kind of a technique is that not only it'll sort of put your left hand to the task because it requires, when you're playing under the slide on 2 strings that are very close to each other and you really want to avoid sort of noise surrounding those 2 strings, you're going to have to lift the slide ever so slightly in order to go down to that note you're fretting underneath. But also, really good practice for your picking hand because there's going to be a whole lot of muting happening around those 2 strings as well as a lot of back and forth with these. And like, I think it's a really good sort of dexterity exercise, but also it just boasts to like the best results possible once you start improvising and you figure out like a key you're jamming in, like doing those sort of little runs here and there without losing track of like the melodic aspect there is to slide playing, which is still super important, obviously. But yeah, I think it's going to add a lot to your slide playing once you get to that level. Which leads us to the final sort of level of slide playing for the day, and that's going to be very similar to the run that I just showed you, the Ariel Posen run, but into a progression that is more sort of scale based. So I'm going to show you first and then I'll try and explain the technique. And I think that was a little bit of each technique that we've covered today, but including sort of an expansion of the Ariel Posen lick, and that was this particular part. And for lack of better words, I like to explain that technique as more of a like pentatonic sort of run that you're going to do. Even though the positions in open tuning are completely different, that's the reason that allow you to do that kind of thing and to stay basically on the line of E major, and to do that kind of run. Because if you're trying to do that in E standard, you'd obviously have to move from here to there and then slide if you're staying in the pentatonic scale, obviously. So it's going to imply a lot more movement and sort of keep you from doing those runs maybe as fast or as efficiently as you want to do them, because in itself there's really not a lot going on there. It's really just playing under the string while going up the scale. And that's basically all there is to it. But I think the trickier aspect of that is definitely on your right hand, and that's going to be again, the muting and picking, which has so much to do on the final result of your slide playing and how clean you're going to be able to pull those licks off. It's like how quickly you're going to be able to come and mute the strings that you're not using anymore, and even more so while doing those sort of fast runs. And I think that's it for today. Those 5 levels are already, you should already stretch them out across a fairly long period of time, because we went from single string playing to like those kind of licks and things that you can use in your solo work, for example. And you know, there's a little bit of a progression there, but there's still a lot more to explore with either open tunings by them on their own or open tunings in relation to slide. There's a lot more that I'd like to talk about. So let me know in the comments if you're interested in seeing that kind of video. I'd really enjoy making it. While you're down there, if you can consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on what's coming next, that would be beautiful. Thank you so very much. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you in the comments and in the next video. Bye, guys.